really glad to be here, really glad that this convention is actually face-to-face because I got sick and tired of Zoom. I had enough of seeing people in small squares, and I really appreciate the fact that you're here. When I was about to come here today, I looked at nearly all the alternatives that I have, right? So move it on one hand, being stuck in traffic on the other hand. Waze told me that it's going to be a very long journey. I eventually took my bicycle and rode here. And at the end of the day, the reason that we started Waze is that we hate traffic jams. We really hate traffic jams. And when we started, we had the vision that we are actually going to address that and solve traffic jams. But if you look at the traffic jams today, they are much more severe than they were in 2007 when we started. So to a certain extent, I would say we either failed in our journey or we are incomplete. And to an extent, I would say, you know what? Waze actually have a part of it. I didn't know that until someone told me that I empower them to drive. And so not only that I'm saving time in traffic jams, I actually empower more people to drive. And on one hand, I would say increasing traffic in that sense. And on the other hand, I would say I'm much more proud to empower people than to save them time. So I would like to share with you a little bit the perspective of the nature of the beast, the essence of the traffic problem. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, and what you're really seeing in this picture is traffic jams, right? 5 lanes of traffic jams. Essentially, what we are seeing exactly is 200 people sitting in 177 vehicles. Now, I'm going to do a magic, and I'm going to remove the vehicles and keep the people in place. This is it. I can take these 177 as 200 people and fit them into 3 buses, right? I can use bicycles, I can use different things. The nature of the beast, by the way, if you think of Uber is actually make it worse, right? Because in some cases, when you think about it, if there's only the driver in the car, then essentially the car is empty, and the ratio between number of passengers to number of vehicles is actually becoming worse. If you think of autonomous vehicles, this is going to be even worse, right? Because they will be roaming around, creating traffic, and there is no one that is riding those. So if I really want to think about it, I want you to think of 1 kilometer of 1 lane, right? And imagine that on route number 1 from here to Jerusalem, or route 101 from San Jose to San Francisco, or Interstate 405 in LA, whatever it is, right? In this 1 kilometer, there are about 40 vehicles, maybe 45 vehicles. In those vehicles, there are 50 people. That's it. 50 people occupying 1 kilometer of road. And we simply don't have enough roads. The ratio of number of passengers per vehicle in the US and in the Western world is 1.1 passengers per vehicle. That's it, 1.1 passengers per vehicle. If you don't believe me, then tomorrow morning when you're stuck in traffic on Iron Highway, look around you and count how many people are in the cars around you. It's usually just the driver. And it's the driver, and then we have a big car around us, and then we need to keep space from the cars ahead of us and behind us and on the sides, and this is simply too much space. At the end of the day, if you think of the mobility choice, and this is where I go into the user perspective, right? The user actually have 3 things that he thinks about it when he chooses mobility, right? So one of them is convenience. And convenience is not objective, it's subjective. For some of them, it would be the privacy. For some of them, it's going to be the fact that I can actually watch movie while I'm transporting. The convenience is definitely the most important one. The other one is speed, how long it's gonna take me. I live in northern part of Tel Aviv. I'm gonna get there faster riding my bicycle than any other mean of transportation. And the last one is cost. Now I want you to imagine, I'm gonna build a system for you that is actually equally convenient to anything else that you have today, faster, and free. If I can do that, the result will be that most of the people will choose that instead of driving their own car. So I want you to think of something that is fast, something that is free, something that is convenient, and something that can actually lead you from anywhere to anywhere. Now, if you have that, then you would say, wait a minute, why in heaven do I even need to own a car, or definitely not to use that on my daily commute? The name of the game, dedicated roads. If you think of subway is fast, it's reliable, it's convenient, because there is a dedicated road for the train. If we do the same thing with a city, and just imagine any city in the US is built grid-based, right? Just take half of the avenues and half of the streets and make them only for public transportation. And the result is that you actually build a system that is taking you from anywhere to anywhere, right? Imagine an elevator, right? So this road takes you, or this street or avenue, there are public transportation going back and forth all day long. By the way, if you make them smaller vehicles at a higher frequency, then you get something that is much closer to an elevator. And they might be only 200 or 300 or 400 meters apart, right? So you can get from anywhere to anywhere. Now, the dedicated lanes or the dedicated roads enable you everything. At the same time, I would say this is really, really hard because it requires hard decision, right? So just show me the mayor that will tell all the citizens in his city or in her city, I'm going to take half of the roads away from you, and I'm going to use them for public transportation. Now, the good news is that if you do that, you will become the next president. The bad news is that if you do that, then everyone is going to complain. Making hard decisions is hard. We need people with the vision. But this is a decision that needs to be made by the authorities, right? By the municipality or by the city mayor, or occasionally, in some cases, by the Ministry of Transportation, in order to build it in a way that it's actually deliver much better solution. Now, if we don't do that, if you think that traffic jams today are bad, next year it's going to be even worse. And the year after that, it's going to be even worse. Here in Israel, we accumulate about 300,000 new vehicles every year. That's about 10% of the number of vehicles increase. Right? And you think about it and you say, okay, wait a minute. All those people are going to use the same roads as everyone else, and at the same time as everyone else. And we will be stuck in traffic forever. If we don't address that, then we are really going to have a major problem. Now, and to a certain extent, I would say it's not up to us. It's not up to the innovators or to the entrepreneurs. It's up to the authorities and up to us to convince them. But you occasionally ask yourself, what is it that we can do as entrepreneurs? And the reality is that we can do quite a lot, right? I just want you to think of, and this is something that we have measured during my Waze days, and we have measured that again during my movie days. And we looked at what happened for someone that wants to go to New York City by the Long Island Railroad and lives someplace in Long Island, right? And let's say in Plainview, and the nearest train station will be Hicksville, right? And so this person is leaving their house at about 7:30 in the morning, getting into their car, driving to the parking of the train station, and then driving throughout the entire parking lot, figuring out that there is no parking, and continue to drive to the city. Now, if you try to do the same thing in Kfar Saba, then you will get exactly the same results, right? So you leave your house at 7:30, you drive to the train station, you go into the parking garage, no parking, right? And so you keep on driving back to Tel Aviv. And this actually happens everywhere, right? Now, this is simple solution, right? If you realize that this is the nature of the beast. If you can reduce 10 to 20% of the vehicles driving into the major city by simply providing a solution for the first mile, not the last mile, the first mile, then you would end up with something that is actually generating a lot of value. Now, if you want to start in New York City, I would say no, start in any major city in Europe or start even in Israel, because the number of passengers on the train here are dramatically higher. So this is one thing that I would say, if you think about it and you want to do something that creates an impact, deal with the first mile, and you can actually reduce traffic by 10 to 20% easily. Another thing that you can actually do is, and this is going back into the early days of us trying to figure out the product market fit of Waze, and we think about the following, right? So we're seeing people entering destination, driving to the destination, and keep on driving. And then we started to look at the traces of those, and we realized that they got into their destination, and now they're looking for parking, right? And so they're driving around the block, and then around a bigger block, and then they're starting to go all throughout all the cross streets of the block, until eventually they find the parking place. And you ask yourself, okay, how bad is that? Right now, in Tel Aviv, 1/3 of the vehicles are looking for parking. 1/3 of the vehicles are looking for parking. And essentially creating traffic jams by that, right? Because they are on the roads and they shouldn't be there. Anything that will deal with parking solution, anything that will improve parking within the cities for commuters is going to be pretty dramatic. And this is something that we also need to remember, right? So if you are an entrepreneur, if you think of solutions that will make an impact, first mile is one. On-street parking is another one. By the way, I'm working on some of those already, trying to essentially address the issue of parking, because I hate that. To an extent I hate parking as well, but I hate traffic. And maybe the last story, and this really has to do with Waze and less has to do with smart mobility. Over the years, I've heard so many people coming to me with different stories of Waze, telling me, "Oh, you have no idea how amazing it is." Actually, walking into this hall. There was someone told me that this is the most important app on their phone. There was one guy that actually told me that he owes me thousands of dollars in speeding tickets, so even that as well. But I think that I owe the best story to my son. I have 5 kids. One of them is started to drive about 6 or 7 years ago, and he really liked to drive. He would drive anywhere, right? If I would tell him that I need to go someplace, if he can drive me there, he would say absolutely. So one day, I asked him to drive me to the airport. And I said, "Take me to the airport." And he said, "I can't. My phone is broken. I can't." And I said, "Okay, what do you mean you can't? Here is the car. Here are the keys. Drive me to the airport." Say, no, Dad, you don't understand. My phone is broken. I don't know how to get there. So I was scratching my head for a second, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to be in the car with you, and I will tell you how to get there." And then he said, "And how would I come back?" So we might lose orientation, but not logic. Thank you.